Welcome to the Juice Box with Juice Springsteen, covering the week that was in professional wrestling. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of the Juice Box. I am Juice Springsteen, and alongside me in the Juice Box today, we have frequent collaborator and contributor to the Juice Box, the one and the only Josh Isenberg. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing well. We are on the road to WrestleMania, Juice, and it's always exciting to hop on the Juice Box and talk about what's going to happen here in less than 35 days, 30 days, something like that.
It's a month out as we're recording this, a little peek behind the microphone. It's March 20th as we're recording this, and April 20th is WrestleMania Night 2. So we are practically a month away exactly from the showcase of the Immortals, and a lot of uncertainty, a lot of intrigue, and we'll dive into all of that, of course, as we go through today's show. We're going to kick off with AEW. This is a little interesting having a guest in here for something other than pay-per-view predictions or PLE predictions, where we're just going to kind of fly through certain topics and, bounce things off of each other as we normally do in those prediction shows. But the format's a little changed, and this is kind of a little bit of a throwback to the CSR days, no?
I think I'm excited.
And you should be. As always, though, follow me on Twitter at JuicySteen. Follow Josh at Josh Eisenberg4 on Twitter, and chat about the Graps as one does here in March 2025. Speaking of people chatting, let's start off with some AEW before we close out with a lot of WWE poignant news and notes with WrestleMania, Raw, and SmackDown being overseas. A lot of stuff going on across the board pro wrestling-wise. AEW Dynamite this past Wednesday. We had a lot of good things happen. We have now a triple threat match set for Dynasty between Mike Bailey, Ricochet, and Kenny Omega, which is insane. I'm sure that's, again, people have already made comparisons to the unbreakable triple threat between AJ Styles, Christopher Daniels, and Samoa Joe, as maybe this could be the blueprint for something like that. So we got that on the card. Swerve Strickland and Jon Moxley, by way of Moxley retaining in a street fight against Cope, will now be for the world title. And Megan Bayne gets the victory over Chris Statlander, and it will be Megan Bayne versus Timeless Toni Storm for the AEW Women's World Title. So Dynasty now, 3 matches set, April 6th in Philadelphia. Josh, I ask you this, though. I mentioned Moxley. He retains his title against Cope. But everybody's really only talking about the spot to end all spots. What was that? It looked like Janice, the former Abyss weapon. A bunch of nails on that 2x4, and Mox gets suplexed on them. They stuck in him, and God, he had to call Wheeler Yuta to do a different spot so they could get the spikes out of his back. What are your thoughts on the spot as a whole, and just the outrage, lack of a better term, from certain fans, and maybe where they're coming from in regards to this spot?
Yeah, it's interesting because when I watched it last night, or on Wednesday night, it was interesting because I didn't expect a spot that gruesome or that big to be placed in the middle of the show. I think that's really my only gripe about that. You look at Jon Moxley, he's a guy that's going to always test the limits. He's going to push the envelope in what he can do. I had no problem with the spot. Again, I would prefer that match to have main evented. Nothing against the women, but whenever you have something as gruesome as that and something as memorable as that, the rest of the show kind of takes back seat to it.
Well, it's tough to top that.
It's almost impossible because it's something that you just typically don't see. And I think the aftermath of the referee and Wheeler trying to pull it out of his back. Look, AEW is never going to be everybody's cup of tea. It's not going to be something that everybody likes. And there's a lot of things that I can criticize AEW for over the years, whether it's a lack of push or a consistent push for individuals. whether it's signing 75, 80 people, seeing them for a week, and then you don't know where if they're still in AEW. This is not something I'm going to criticize. I think this was, again, aside from being in the middle of the card, it was gruesome, it was intense. But why wouldn't they have done this at the pay-per-view?
Yeah. That's a valid criticism, I would say. And yeah, I got that the match could be in the middle of the show with what they wanted to do for the main event, but like you said, if you know ahead of time, well, we're going to do this spot in the match, that makes the match more than just because again, I have no problem with the world title being in the middle of the card if they have bigger things planned for the main event spot, but the spot in the title match supersedes everything else on the show. So that's kind of where the disconnect might be. Yeah, I have no problem with the spot either. I've been back and forth with people on Twitter about like how ECW had things very similar, if not crazier, in a lot of their matches. And it's not to say because people have the retort of, well, ECW went out of business in a couple years. And that's true. But my point of saying that ECW had these things happen and how to me it's not as big of a deal. ECW had these things happen because they were the alternative. They were extreme. They were trying to make a name for themselves. And they're also catering to certain fans. And it was what it was, but the whole show wasn't that. The whole show wasn't one match about barbed wire. It was, well, that was the main event, and they can show you in other weeks and other shows that they have so much more to give. And AEW gives you everything else all the time. Where the best wrestle is their tagline. If you watched Revolution, you saw arguably 2 or 3 of the best matches you might see all year. So it lends itself to, okay, on TV, if you're going to see something crazy, great, give it to them here. We had the pizza cutter incident on TV.
Cutting to a Domino's commercial right after.
Perfect transition.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was perfect. So to me, it's just like this was one segment. If you didn't like it, don't watch it if you know Mox is going to do something crazy. And let me also reiterate this before I pass it back to you, Josh. There was a blizzard in Omaha, and it was a very tough sled, lack of a better term, for some of the talent to get to the venue. Jon Moxley drove 11 hours to go to this show and have that spot happen to him. He drove 11 hours to be suplexed onto a 2x4 of 5-inch nails. Yeah. I appreciate the dedication to. He's literally been the most stable person in AEW since the beginning, and I think it has completely washed away any good or bad that he might have done outside of the Shield in his time in WWE. I think he is now more Mox than he ever was Dean Ambrose. He's always reliable. Anytime anything has happened negatively, he's kind of been that guy to, all right, I'll carry the ball. Let me step in. Let me do it. So
yeah,
what are your thoughts on that?
I agree. I think he's the definition of what AEW is because he was the trailblazer of crossing that line from WWE to AEW when he debuted. And he has been the constant. And I'll be honest, I'm not the biggest Dean Ambrose, Jon Moxley fan of all time, but that doesn't mean I can't respect him for what he's put into this business and specifically what he's put into AEW. When you look at, I guess, like the totality of his career, in WWE, he did such great things, but he was definitely third string to Roman and Seth. I think it was a combination of things. I think it was a combination of his look at that time. He was not, he was maybe 30 pounds less, had weird hair. His gear wasn't great. And I'm not sure if that was him or if that was WWE trying to make him this lunatic fringe.
And you love gear talk, so I know that really affected you.
I loved what?
Like talking about wrestlers' gear.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, like a guy in a tank top and jeans, who's 200 pounds, who you might see at a dive bar in Pittsburgh. Like, do you really think this guy's going to kick your butt? No, maybe not. But whenever Moxley came to AEW, I think there was a big shift, a seismic shift, I think is what he said in his first promo, or paradigm shift, actually. Yeah, paradigm shift. That he was a guy who was reinventing himself as who he was before going to WWE, but also adding on muscle. And because, again, wrestling is definitely a sport where you have to look the part. You have to look like a guy that you can realistically think could beat somebody else up. Um, so yeah, for me, all in all, Moxley, the spot I think was well done. I wish it ended, Dynamite on Wednesday, or it would have been at Revolution a few weeks ago. But at the same time, that's what AEW is about. Like, we fell in love with AEW years ago because every Wednesday you never knew what was going to happen or who was going to come out and debut.
Yeah.
And I get that you want to save those special moments for those pay-per-views, but they like to sprinkle in things that you will remember on Wednesday nights. Yeah, overall, didn't have a problem with it. I rewound it a few times, showed my wife it, and she was like, "That's disgusting." I said, "That's the that's the point."
That's the genius of it.
Yeah, it's the genius, the delicate genius. But yeah, I didn't have a problem with it. I think Dynamite in general last night hit on all cylinders in terms of the physicality, the hardcore, the ruthless aggression type stuff that you saw between that match. A pretty solid match for the TBS Championship.
Yeah.
A good promo from MJF and MVP backstage, and then the main event obviously focusing on the women. Just they need to realize like those big moments that could happen at 9 o'clock Eastern that are going to be overshadowing everything else that happens, you might want to just shuffle the deck a little bit and say, okay, we know this is going to happen in this match. Unless we have something bigger planned, this probably should be what people think about last.
Well, and right, you would assume, right, that they'd have the foresight to go, well, if we're going to do this like nail spot, probably everybody's going to be talking about that. So that's where I agree with you. You put it towards the main event, and this is, of course, hindsight, but it kind of proves the point of what I thought, and a lot of people thought, to be fair, is that at Revolution, Tony Storm and Mariah May should have gone on last. Yep. Because if that happens, you have the Mox Cope match in the middle. It probably turns out a lot better, probably goes over a lot better. And then you can then flip to the last episode of Dynamite. You could have had the rematch, Cope and Mox, as the main event, where you get this huge moment and all those things happen. You could have flipped that. It seems as if they realized that a little too late, and now we get people talking about the Mox Cope situation, 2 weeks too late. But still, it's better. TMZ picked it up. It is good. All press can be, good press in pro wrestling. It's just you gotta maybe avoid Twitter to find the better side of that, because people are just like, they do what they do.
Yeah, and it really is just a combination of like they're so different, because you can like AEW, you can like WWE, you can dislike things for WWE, you can dislike things for AEW, but there comes a point, I think, in social media in the world that we live in now where you have to have a stance on one side or the other and not be middle ground. Right. And that speaks volumes in wrestling, politics, sports, like
anything. Yeah.
Yeah. And in wrestling, in my opinion, I talked about this to a buddy of mine. I love going to wrestling events because no matter if you like John Cena or Roman Reigns or Cody Rhodes or CM Punk, win, loss, or draw, you're there for the experience. And I think that's what AEW still does a really good job of, is when you go to the show, you're experiencing an event. You're experiencing a combination of great professional wrestling and kind of sometimes off-the-wall crazy crap that happens. And I think that's okay to like a little bit of everything. You don't have to like one thing and hate the other, but that's everything that X has done these days. Is like you have to have a stance on one thing and not like multiple things.
Right, and I can also hate multiple things. That's the best part. Like with wrestling, it's sure you might not go for just one or two talent, but you might go for some talent as well. But in general, you're there for the show as a whole, because you're gonna, in that show, you'll see all of your favorites, all the people you might not be interested in, some things you might not even expect. It's a buffet. It's supposed to be there for any and all types of fans, young, old, what have you, to just get the experience that you want to pass to your friends or people that, might not ever watch wrestling. It's like, hey, look at this. Look, you might not like this segment, but did you see what Moxley did? It's like there's always room for new fans to be, ensconced in a new phase of the show. So having to stand on one side or the other is just ridiculous to me. And I just can't do that. Like, even if I were employed by one, I don't think it would be. MJF brought it up. He brought up, I think, the Cena heel turn, or he brought up something. Yeah. And it was just like, how could you not watch it? Like, if you're a person in the business, wouldn't it be better for you to see what everybody's doing to gauge what is currently going on? Because if you're not watching it or choosing to not watch it because you don't like whatever, then it's like, well, you're ignoring a completely large side of the business you're in. So as a fan, I think it's the same thing. Like, who you kidding? What pride are you trying to stand on that? Oh, I don't like watching AEW. I'm all WWE, or vice versa. Like, you're missing a lot, Yeah,
I agree.
So, yeah, I just think it's unnecessary. But along with what else happened, like you mentioned, man, great TBS title match. Mercedes Moné retains, although she got planted with the what was it? Kind of like a one-winged angel almost. Mm-hmm. But she got dropped real hard, but she retains. Do you think that the goal is for Moné to surpass Jade Cargill's title reign as TBS champion?
Definitely. Yeah.
It's coming up. I think it's October is when she would officially pass.
Yeah, I think that's what they're thinking. And I also think it's interesting to me because for the longest time, the TBS champion was kind of like the Intercontinental champion, right? Like the TNT champion, the women's champion, women's world champion. And I still kind of feel that, even though Mercedes, I guess from like the general perspective, not the diehard wrestling fans think that Mercedes is probably a bigger star than Toni Storm, but Toni fires on all cylinders all the time.
Yeah.
Her promos are incredible. Her matches, sometimes vastly different than the next match that you see from her, whether it's a hardcore match, the Hollywood ending, or just a really good, technical match. She's so diverse in terms of how she presents herself in the ring, in terms of what the match is going to be. But I do think that Mercedes is going to be TBS champion for a while. I don't know who dethrones Mercedes. I don't think she's on the roster. And when you go to look at free agents or, individuals in the independent scene, there's not one that really stands out. They can ride her as TBS champion as long as she wants. I don't know if that's a benefit to Mercedes because there's nobody on the star level. Again, aside from a Toni Storm, the only one that I think has reached close to her in terms of, not necessarily in terms of like crowd appreciation because the crowd is against Mercedes, but Harley Cameron was electric. Yeah. She was fire really fast, but they didn't pull the trigger on her. So I'm not sure what they do with that, but I do think that they're going to have her be TBS champion until somebody definitively matches her star power in the eyes of Toni, in the eyes of Mercedes. I don't think Mercedes is going to drop it for just any random person. And we hear about the creative control and all this stuff where I think it's very valid for Mercedes, but at the same time, I kind of understand it because there's not many people right now that can match her level that she has accumulated over the 8-9 years dating back to WWE.
And that's the other thing that's I always bring it up on this show is like, X beating Y, but what happens next for the person that wins and what happens next for the person that loses? Like if Mercedes is going to lose the title, it should be to somebody who's going to really take that title to the next level, who's going to defend it, probably not out-reign the Moné reign, but, hold it for a while. You're the one that beat the person that took this reign so long, and then what's next for Mercedes too? Like, those have to be set in place for even the conversation to begin of, well, when is she going to lose? Because until then, I have no issue with it being, who's next for Mercedes. Like, they keep having compelling matches. The matches have actually gotten better as of late with like Harley Cameron and this match with Billy Starks. again, they've just gotten better and better, and they haven't lost their quality. I think if we get to a point where Monet is like not having great matches, that maybe we should tone it back, and then you're gonna have to just deal with, all right, give her Athena again, or put her with Willow, or put Chris Statlander. You're gonna have to make it the people that she might have already beaten, but they're gonna get the best matches with her, because Mercedes is great in ring. She's for a long time she's been one of the better in ring performers, but you also need a great dance partner. So the more people she beats, it's like, well, either you're gonna run the risk of beating everybody, like you said, you're gonna have to bring someone out of nowhere to face her, or you're gonna have to bring back someone she's beaten once or twice. Yeah. All right, now you get another chance for whatever reason. So it'll be interesting to see. I do agree. I think they are going to try to have her beat Jade's record. I was kind of against that when I first heard that brought up, because it's still October. I mean, that's 7 months of her just winning and winning and winning. But hey, stranger things have happened. I don't know. I'm interested to see who eventually does take it off Monet, because I can't see it as, I agree with you. It has to be someone maybe outside that we're not even really thinking of, but who that is, I don't know.
Yeah.
So interesting stuff there. And then the only thing else I wanted to mention was Chris Statlander and Megan Bayne. Again, two of the top, in the women's division currently that aren't champions, or haven't really been involved. Megan Bayne's been destroying people recently, which is why I'm glad she got the win. And it's going to be Megan Bayne against Timeless Toni Storm at Dynasty. Now, I know we're not doing predictions just yet, but even if Megan Bayne is this badass, I don't think it'll be just yet for her to win, but I think it's going to be interesting to see Timeless Toni Storm in the ring with someone who definitely has the size advantage on her.
Yeah, I agree. I was actually surprised, though, that they gave Megan Bayne this championship match so quickly, which leads me to believe that they might put the rocket on her and destroy Toni. I don't think they should or will, but in the back of my mind, you have somebody like Megan Bayne, and nothing against Megan Bayne at all, because I think she is going to be a star. She has the look, she has the presence. There's something about her, even though we don't know her background, we don't know her character development. At this point, I don't think we need to. But I also don't think we need to have her compete for a championship just yet. But I also think that what their thought process is, well, Megan Bayne is, 5 or 6 matches where she dominates. What's next? And what's next is fast tracking her to a championship match. And I don't see her, obviously, as a heel going against Mercedes, who we've said so many times, in a way has been protected. Toni can bounce back, even if she loses to Megan Bayne. I don't think she will. But at the same time, this is something that I would like to see it all in instead of Dynasty. Give Megan Bayne 6 months, not 6 weeks, right? Give her the opportunity.
Yeah, I could agree with that.
Yeah, give her opportunity to build her character a little bit, but also still run through people. Just an interesting decision that they put her with Toni Storm, in 2-3 weeks, and I wouldn't be surprised if she won, but that's not what I would do, especially since Toni just came off of a feud that carried AEW for months, and she carried the women's division for the past 7 months.
Yeah, especially with that fact in mind, that Toni has been a part of such a huge storyline, arguably the best storyline AEW has done in a long time, if not ever, and I consider her character to be probably the best character that's ever really come out of AEW thus far, that's been organically created there. Yeah. And I don't know, I can see both sides. I can see where I want to see her continue her momentum, but to my point earlier with Monet, if Toni just came through all this and is still champion after her war with Mariah May at Revolution, why wouldn't she, maybe have a misstep? And what would be next? Maybe she just loses it to Megan Bayne, and Megan Bayne does have that rocket. She has the momentum. You see what she can do with that world title. Have some matches. Toni could even win it back at some point, or you could have Mariah go for it. We have the Owen Hart coming up. There's a lot of, moving pieces there. All in all, I would hope that at least the match we get at Dynasty gives those, behind the scenes in creative control, hey, Megan Bain is worth this spot. She's earned it, but she's also shown you that she's worthy of it. And it just would add, another piece of depth to that women's roster that's so damn loaded in AEW and again across the board really in pro wrestling these days.
Yeah.
Just to have that another solidified piece there. I don't necessarily know if Megan Bain has to be champion for her to be, looked at as that, but maybe they're thinking ahead. Maybe they're thinking let's strap the rocket to her and just see how far we can go with her. I don't know. It's very intriguing to me though, to say the least.
Yeah.
But outside of that, like I said, Dynasty is shaping up to be an interesting show. 3 matches already. First time in Philly for AEW. It should be a wild night in ring, absolutely, because AEW on pay-per-view pretty much delivers every single time. But let's move on to WWE land, in the WWE universe, if you will. We could start with the women. We're going to probably close out here with the obvious, our discussion on the John Cena first promo as a true heel. But quickly, Josh, man, so now we have 4 matches set for WrestleMania, but it's the match that is kind of set, but it's maybe not what is reported yet, and the contract signing was bizarre. But I want to go from women's division to women's division. Evidently, it's Io Sky and Bianca Belair, but Rhea signed the contract. So what are we doing here? I'm here for a triple threat, and I think because to me, Bianca should be. I don't like that. Look, they could easily have Bianca go back in with that Naomi Jade thing because I don't want to believe that Bianca was not a part of it. I want Bianca to be a part of it and be also reveal that she was actually involved. And that like it was a huge plan, but she kind of skated out because they planned it that way. Because they just plucked her out of that, and now she's in this match because she won the Chamber. But now they're adding Io to it. I would have because she's champion. I would have much rather had Bianca and Rhea 1-on-1. But now Io gets the win over Rhea, and now Rhea's like, all right, so now we get a triple threat. What do you prefer out of these 3 women and where they would be? A singles match between either of the 3? The triple threat, what do you look at here?
With Bianca winning the Elimination Chamber, you kind of had to pivot. I think they could have done a good job with Bianca, Naomi, and Jade without a championship, but that's just not going to happen. So for me now, Jade and Naomi as a one-on-one match is great. I'm fine with that. I think that's something that WWE has needed to do for a long time, is have a singles or multi-women match without a championship on the line at WrestleMania. They had a 6-women tag team match a few years ago with Damage Control, but they are the women's tag team champions, even though the tag team champions weren't on the line. I'm good with Rhea, Bianca, and Io as a triple threat. I wish they would have done this. I wish Bianca would have cost Rhea the championship somehow, so she had a claim to stake, right? I understand why they did not want to do that, because they wanted Io to win clean to make her built up stronger, right?
Right.
I get that. But at the same time now, Rhea's trying to insert herself into this match, and I think ultimately you need Adam Pearce to say to Rhea, you have to earn it, and the only way for her to earn it is to beat one of those 2 in a singles match, on the road to WrestleMania. But also both of them saying, Bianca and Io saying, I can beat Rhea. Like, I'll put my pride on the line to beat Rhea to keep her out of this match, for her to be involved in it. The contract signing was strange.
Yeah.
But at the same time, does anybody get a louder pop almost throughout WWE than Rhea? I mean,
doing anything.
Yeah, Brussels was crazy to see Rhea. So I want to see how it plays out. I think that's my biggest thing. I think that there is more to the story of the 3 that they're going to build out in the next 4 weeks. But it was a weird Monday Night Raw, Monday night afternoon for us in the States. to see her just steal the contract and kind of go rogue and not really sure how she's going to implement herself in this match. But overall, I want the triple threat match because ultimately Io beating either Bianca or Rhea solidifies herself, and it doesn't hurt either of those two women. But then, do they want to preserve Bianca's undefeated streak at WrestleMania? I think that they do. So, time will tell.
I want to agree with that last point, but what is it? 3-0, 4-0? Is he really at that high level? I mean, Edge was like 6-0 at one point, but I mean, they didn't even mention it. I don't know. I'm glad you brought up what I was going to bring up. Is I think it would be brilliant for all this to happen and it end up being a triple threat, and the person you don't think would win, even though she's champion, should walk in and walk out still champion, because taking out Rhea and Bianca, and look, even in that match, you could have the reveal. You could have Jade, if Jade has a match with Naomi, say, at Mania, maybe Jade could also, it's also revealed that Bianca was a part of it, you know, and Jade could, in a triple threat, anything can happen. Jade could cost her there, run her out of town there, and you have Io and Rhea, you know, maybe as the fall. But I would love to see Io walk in as champion against all odds, against two of the, arguably, probably the two faces of the women's division of the last 4 years. I mean, these two are just at the top of their game, hugely over with the fans, both of them, you know, and with the precipice of one turning heel in Bianca and the other already being a heel, and now she's just beloved by everybody, it's almost like they're untouchable as characters. So for Io to take out both of them would be remarkable.
Yeah, and also, like, very, very small comparison and not completely accurate, but when I see these three in the ring, I see Rhea, Bianca completely established, and the champion who is kind of an afterthought. It reminds me of WrestleMania 24 with Randy Orton coming in as champion against Triple H and John Cena. And not that Randy Orton wasn't established, but at that time, you always thought it's either going to be Triple H or John Cena, especially considering WrestleMania 23 when Triple H was injured and didn't get to perform in Detroit. You're like, okay, it's not going to be Randy Orton winning. And Randy Orton ended up winning in Orlando. Yeah. So that's kind of how I compare this triple threat match, is like Rhea's kind of the afterthought, even though she's champion, because she's just, you know, she's overshadowed by two mega stars in terms of Rhea and Bianca, like Randy was with Triple H and John Cena. There's no way she's going to walk out. Well, I think she will walk out. Like, I think if I had to place $1 on it right now, and I'm sure Pool Party Gaming will have this for us, you know, in a couple of weeks, I'm going to put my money on Io, because I think they understand that, again, at this point in time, Rhea and Bianca do not need to be champion to be solidified as stars. How do you solidify Io? Even though she walked in as champion last year, lost to Bayley, she had a little bit of a down point during the summer and obviously into the fall, but then she came right back and was always consistent. So I think that triple threat between these three women at WrestleMania is going to be a wonderful match, because I don't think I ever remember a bad match from all three of those in a singles match, let alone all three together. And I think it just creates a lot more intrigue of, okay, it's going to be Bianca, it's going to be Rhea, but wait, it's actually going to be Io Sky.
Yeah, and that comparison to Mania 24 I think is very apropos. I mean, Io has been around in wrestling for a while anyway. Orton had been in WWE up to that point 6 years, and yet we still were like, well, he's champion, but he's not going to walk out. Like, there's two guys here. Any of them could win. I would not be shocked. And lo and behold, that he hit, what was it? He hit the FU, and then he got punted, and that was it.
Yep.
Or he hit the pedigree. One of those two things happened, and then he just stole the win, and it was a beautiful way to end that match. So I'm in agreement. I would put that dollar, or even if it was free to play, free to win at Pool Party Gaming, I would absolutely choose Io Sky if that's the case. So we'll see. Like I said, we got a month away from Mania, so a lot of these things To be announced, card subject to change. Anything can happen in the World Wrestling Federation. All the above. We just don't know. So this is what we know now, and this is how we're going to present it to the folks out there that are listening to the Juice Box every single week. But outside of that, I also wanted to touch on quickly. Rollins is going to talk tonight on SmackDown. It seems like we're going to get that triple threat between Punk, Rollins, and Roman unless something changes. Do you think that's where we're headed?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
I think they did a really good job at that cage match in Madison Square Garden where Roman came out, no music, attacked both guys. And Roman Reigns it's interesting because everything is kind of, focused around Rock, Cena, Cody. A lot of spotlight on them, obviously, and for very valid reasons. But this triple threat match is more intriguing to me right now because of the unknown. I think we know what Cody and John's going to be. Maybe some surprises, maybe a Rock, maybe a Stone Cold that people are talking about. But the triple threat match, for me, can go, ironically, one of three ways. You can have Seth just beat both Paul Heyman guys. You can have Paul side with Punk or be in the middle of Punk and Roman, or you can just have Roman be who Roman Reigns always is the guy that puts money in your pocket. So I think on SmackDown tonight, one of the things I'm really interested to see is the dynamic between all three of them, because as we were at this point last year, Seth was an outlier. Even though he was in a tag team championship match, a tag team main event with Roman, with Cody, and with The Rock, he was by far number 4 in that match. Would you agree with that?
Oh, 1,000%. And even in the main event of night 2, he was so hampered by his injuries. It was not just that he was the 4th name. He had also been really battling injuries and needed some time off. So he was struggling to make it through both nights, to be fair.
But he was the MVP of WrestleMania. I think Cody said that, right? Hey, Seth, he's the MVP of WrestleMania last year.
Absolutely. That's what I'm saying is he made it through all of that, even as injured and even as the, quote, 4th out of those 4. It's nice to see that he gets this, somewhat of a redemption in this potential triple threat. But go ahead.
So my point is going to be, I'm interested to see how they make, or how Seth makes himself at the level of Roman Reigns and CM Punk. I don't know if he can get there. And I think it's just predicated behind the fan perception. And again, it's not because Seth has done anything wrong. I think the only thing that Seth does, I guess, quote, wrong is, he's flamboyant in his gear. He's not really relatable. And Roman is a badass who doesn't do much, but people love him. Punk is the everyman. People see Punk and they draw themselves to just the realism that CM Punk has brought to WWE, AEW, pro wrestling for 20 years. Yeah. Seth needs to strip down from his flashy look, from his
character. Laugh. Really? I said from his over the top character. If he makes it more determined, if you will, and hey, I gotta punch up to these guys without admitting he has to punch up. I just want to take this match seriously. Yeah, then I'm in agreement with you.
Yeah, and I think he could get close to that. But then when I think about this triple threat match comparative to the previous triple threat match that's being rumored for WrestleMania with the women, Punk again is that outlier. People are expecting Roman or Punk to win. And again, Roman or Punk, if they win, great. Punk's in the main event. Punk wins, kind of fulfills that destiny that he's always wanted to be, is winning in the main event. But then again, you have Seth, who, when is it really going to be Seth Rollins and not him being 1B or 2A? But I don't know if he's ever going to get there. And it's nothing based on him.
Yeah.
It's, for me, Seth Rollins right now is very similar to late years Shawn Michaels, because Shawn Michaels had wonderful matches at WrestleMania, whether it's against Ric Flair, whether it's against, even going back a few years to Kurt Angle. He was always the guy that put on incredible matches, great storylines, but whenever you saw WrestleMania 21, you weren't talking about Shawn. 22, you weren't talking about him. All the way up to 26, aside from obviously his matches with The Undertaker, it was still about John Cena, The Undertaker, Batista, Triple H. He's in this odd spot where he's just not at that high level of star power. And again, I think what you said, he needs to be more relatable. And I'm not sure how you get that in 5 weeks as we head to WrestleMania.
And it's pretty crazy to think that his biggest moment up to this point at a WrestleMania, it's one of two things. It's either opening WrestleMania 35 and winning against Brock Lesnar, or closing out WrestleMania 31 by just kind of sneaking in and making a match between two bigger than life stars, Roman and Brock, and winning the title. He's never.
Or 38 against Cody though, but it was more Cody at that point.
True, but yeah, they're there for Cody. They were there, that match was for Cody, and even the Hell in a Cell match that they had, but it was Cody that was the story. Like, Seth's always been the bridesmaid and never the bride, even when, when he was the one that, made the Shield break up, even when he was with the Authority, he still has not, it's just like a little step that he just hasn't taken yet. He's been in countless great matches, moments over the years, revered by the fans. I think this is going to be a huge test for Seth. And depending on where it lands in regards to the card, because I mean, sure, I think
it's night one. If this is a triple threat, it main events night one.
And I can agree with that. It's just funny that there's 3 other world title matches that will not close out. But if that's the case, I'd want Seth Rollins to almost win that match so he could prove, hey, I beat 2 guys that are, first ballot Hall of Famer or whatever, however you want to put it to where people can understand it. But Roman Reigns is on a level of his own. CM Punk has been a legend for a long time. Seth could really solidify himself he could be the Io Sky, the Randy Orton of Mania 24, if he were to take that route. So very interesting to look at. And, I've been critical of, there's no stakes. But if Seth Rollins were to beat those guys in that match, I don't think stakes would be needed, because I think you have a made star, definitive star in Seth Rollins if he were to win that match.
Yeah, and I think when you think about Seth Rollins in general, his WrestleMania career has been very interesting, right? You see him, at WrestleMania 30 with the Shield, again, 31, winning the championship in a very shocking moment, missing 32, 33, obviously against Triple H, which I thought was one of the better matches of WrestleMania 33 in Orlando. But then he kind of took a dip down a little bit, right? 34 was in New Orleans. He had the triple threat match for the IC title against, with Finn Balor involved in that. That won
opened
that,
up
obviously.
The show.
Yeah, and exactly. That kicked off WrestleMania. But then, aside from the Brock Lesnar thing, which I don't think that's very memorable to people, because that event was kind of, it was 6 hours, right? So
that's the problem. It was at the start of a 7-hour show, and it was a great moment when it happened, because it was wow, quick win, very powerful, but then everything else happened after that.
And you took the wind out of the sails of that amazing moment. When that's different if he starts the show WrestleMania Saturday or Sunday when it's a 3-hour show. Yeah. Instead of starting a show that's 7 hours, like you said, because that's still a very, even for last year, I mean, you talk about Seth Rollins last year and you talk about 2 things. You talk about his championship, his tag team main event on Saturday, and then his involvement with Cody on Sunday. You don't talk about him, losing to Drew McIntyre,
even losing the world title in the opening match.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's just some weird dynamic, some weird cloud around him that whatever he does, it's not forgotten, but there's so many other big important things that happen in those big pay-per-views, premium live events, where he's not at the forefront. He could be at the forefront if he beats Roman and CM Punk in the main event, WrestleMania Saturday. I need a little bit more from Seth Rollins to make me believe that he is on the level of those two guys.
And I'm in total agreement. And it is pretty crazy that through all of those moments and everything, yeah, I would then say it is the biggest moment he's ever had was him winning at Mania 31, closing out WrestleMania, stealing the title, first person to cash in Money in the Bank at Mania. Like, that is his biggest moment, but that was 10 years ago.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? My goodness.
Yeah, that was his biggest moment, and he's had great ones since then, but nothing, as we talk about it, nothing has topped that. So he is due. He's due for something very memorable. So we'll have to see. We got a month away. We'll see what happens. One other thing, this is very quick, are you interested in a Penta Braun Breaker IC title match, or would you prefer a multi-man match?
Oh, man, that's a great question. At this point, I would like a multi-man match. I think there's too many qualified people that I want to see face Braun again. And I know Braun's beaten Sheamus. I know Braun's beaten Finn. Honestly, I kind of think we can do some sort of Finn Dom thing to get Finn out of that IC title match. I'd rather see a Fatal 4-Way or something, but I only want to see it if they have a story behind why all four people either dislike each other or why all four people want to be Intercontinental Champion. One-on-one for mid-card titles are great, but I prefer them not to be one-on-one at WrestleMania unless you have a deep developed story. I mean, Juice, for years, the Intercontinental Championship was nothing at WrestleMania because those people are in Money in the Bank ladder matches, right? Like, it was 9-10 years, I think, where there was no IC title representation.
It was a very, very long time.
Yeah. But, like, even when you go back, again, a very forgotten match, the U.S. title at 34th, Randy Orton, Rusev, Jinder Mahal, and somebody else. I can't think of the fourth.
I can't either.
It's going to bother me now, and I can't Google it right now quickly. But that Fatal 4-Way, it was a good match, but it was 9 or 10 minutes in a 5-hour pay-per-view again. But I want to see Braun, Penta. I wouldn't mind a Sheamus, Ludwig, because Ludwig is a very great character who you just do not like. I want to see a multi-man match for the IC title. The U.S. title, I think the U.S. title would be more of a one-on-one if you can find somebody that can measure up to the stick on the mic with an LA Knight.
Right. Exactly. You want to have someone where you can have a promo battle, a war of words, something that they can sink their teeth into. But it almost seems like either of those matches or both could get the multi-man treatment, especially now that we get 2 nights of Mania. Let's load it up with talent. Everybody gets to be on Mania, which I don't hate, but it's like it somewhat makes the matches or the champions seem less than, because it's like, well, we couldn't find a story for you, so let's do this,
Yeah.
And a ladder match or something would be fine, I guess, but like that's almost the obvious. They do that all the time, and who knows what we're gonna do with the tag titles, and it just, there's a lot to go around. But still, even with 2 nights, it's like you want to make sure the cards are still concise and not bloated.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, with a multi-person match for the IC title, so here's why I like that, because the 2 world championships are one-on-one, right? The women's championship is one-on-one. You're going to have a Naomi Jade one-on-one. You're going to have maybe, Logan and AJ one-on-one. That's 5 matches already of a potential 13 or 14 matches that are one-on-one. So my thought process typically in every PLE or more specifically WrestleMania, if you have, let's just say 12 matches, I'm good with half of them or 65, 70% of them being one-on-one, and then mix in multiple person matches. We don't need it to be WrestleMania 2000 where there was no one-on-one matches, but we also need a nice balance of, not just one-on-one, one-on-one, one-on-one for the entire show.
Yeah, and I mean, we didn't even, I don't know if you mentioned, did you mention Drew and Damian?
Drew and Damian, yeah, so that's 7 right there off the top of our heads, yeah.
Another match that, again, as time goes on, these shows happen, there's less and less time to create a story or follow through, and it's like, well, all right, we got to do a multi-man.
Yeah.
It's almost like that escape hatch button. But something that doesn't need any endorsement from me, you, anybody else. Stage is set. John Cena, Cody Rhodes. Could have been babyface versus babyface, and I would have been just as thrilled. 17 world title opportunity on the line here. And then Cena turns heel and flips everything. He joins with The Rock. Crazy moment. We could talk for hours just on that moment alone. But we finally got the first promo from John Cena. This has been I'm a nitpicking guy. He kept saying 25 years. It's been 20 years, okay? Sure, he's been wrestling for 25, but he's been in WWE for maybe 23, and then he became world champion 20 years ago, and that's when people started really wanting to have him turn. So either way, we've waited 20 years, and then an additional 16 days from Elimination Chamber, which in this day and age, for a turn that large, with everybody's talking about it on local radio and on TV and First Take, in places you're never thinking pro wrestling will get discussed, it got discussed when John Cena becomes a bad guy, yet it took 16 days to hear that first response because of his mic drop at the presser. Mm-hmm. So with all that said, I have some bullet points that I'm sure we'll touch on, and whenever maybe you bring it up, I'll say, all right, well, this is one of my bullet points. I want to just give the floor to you. What did you think of the John Cena promo, 19 minutes from Brussels?
Whew, man. So I loved it for a few things. For so many years, John Cena has been a guy that, again, embraced the hate. Like, he embraced the booing, the let's go Cena, Cena sucks. So a few things I think stuck out in his promo to me that I've thought about, since Monday, so going on 5 days now. The fact that he said about how you sons of, bees, I'm not sure if I can swear in the juice box. I've tried to keep my
I know. You said butt earlier. I was like,
crap. I know.
Really, I know.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to go PG here, which is the reason that John Cena has never been appreciated. Great transition. If John Cena was in the Attitude Era, and I'm not saying the Ruthless Aggression Era because it still was kind of close to PG, he would have been transcending WWE, similar to how Stone Cold and The Rock did, because there was no filters. So a lot of the things that John Cena said were so true. Like, John Cena gave and gave and gave, but he never was ever fully appreciated. So I understood that. I got that. I love the fact that he talked about that, because Cena, again, the last time Cena, I think, fully was appreciated, in my mind, not the last time, but the first time after his entire long career, I was there in Fort Worth, Texas at Money in the Bank whenever Roman Reigns defeated Edge for the WWE Championship and Cena made that return. But then a month later, I was in Vegas to watch that SummerSlam match, and you had that mixed reaction because they're like, oh my gosh, John Cena came back, but wait, it's still John Cena, so we should still boo him. He was never fully appreciated, and I think the parallels between him and The Rock are very similar, even though they haven't said this yet. But when The Rock came back from Hollywood, he was booed. People did not seeing The Rock because it was the same old song and dance with The Rock. Even though The Rock was a heel, they were entertained by him. They liked the music. But then last year, they booed The Rock because it's like, oh man, The Rock's back, and he's taking a spot from somebody else. So after Elimination Chamber, that was the first thing I thought of, was it makes sense for him to want to partner up with The Rock, because The Rock went through this entire thing where he was so beloved. And again, The Rock was much more a heel longer than John Cena ever was more successful as a heel much longer than John Cena ever was, but their careers are very, very similar, where they leave, they come back, they get that quick instant reaction of, oh, he's back, but let's boo him again because that's the cool thing to do. So
Right.
all in all, to put a bow on this, the promo for me hit on every level, and I'm glad that he didn't talk about The Rock on his first promo being a heel, because it needed to focus more on him and not having him talk about The Rock and potentially The Rock overshadowing John, and focusing on why he did what he did and why he feels like he feels, and then Cody coming in, 2-3 minutes of Cody talking about John Cena, calling him a whiny bee, and then we move on. There's still 5 more weeks of TV, 4 more weeks of TV to have the reasoning why he sold his soul to The Rock. So all in all, an absolute home run. And I'm also going to say this. There should never be another Road to WrestleMania that's in the United States. Give us 3 weeks in Brussels, UK, London, anywhere, Germany, wherever. That makes every feud, every promo, every match feel so much more important going to the biggest event of the year for WWE.
Hell, they could do it in Canada. I probably wouldn't have a problem with it because those crowds seem to be pretty lively as well. Because they just don't see what the United States sees every single week, almost every single PLE up until the last couple of years. So I'm in agreement with you on that. I am kind of in your camp, and I'm kind of not, but my kind of not is only based on it was just one promo, and I am fully giving it the opportunity to breathe because there are a few more weeks left. I also just am concerned about how many more times we actually see Cena to where he could flesh this out a little more. Because my only issues, so I did not have a problem with the gear not being changed because that was something that everybody just like assumed and he had brought up in interviews, but that was then. That doesn't mean that this has to be that. He's kind of approaching this heel turn. I'm saying that like in kayfabe, like he sold his soul to The Rock, but he's still John Cena. He's still, the same guy. Now he did stick it to the fans. He said he broke up with the fans. You brought up a point of you were in the crowd for that Money in the Bank moment, and I agree with that. But to me, the sentiment of him saying, it's been this split reaction or it's been this for so long, I would wager even as early, and it's not a definitive, it's just my opinion, even as early as that US Open Challenge Cena, I think a lot of fans started like not being the wow, Cena's gonna win, I'm so over this. I think the respect for Cena has been a lot more prevalent within the last 10 years. So I kind of disagree with him being like, you guys have hated me this whole time. And like, that was probably the first 10, 15 years of that. But it's been more respect over the last few, purely based on him not being here full time.
Yeah. So real quick question. So that U.S. Championship Open, I'm sorry to interrupt, but the U.S. Championship Open was basically leading up to WrestleMania 31, where he defended the championship and beat Rusev, correct? Or was that after Rusev?
It might have been after.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
Because I think a lot of people were bothered by the fact that he beat Bray Wyatt at 30, beat Rusev at 31, these two young up-and-comers. And again, like as we heard for years, the shovel, I think people still liked it, but at the same time, there were still mixed reactions. Again, I could be wrong, but I agree with you. I think the U.S. Open Challenge was him on a weekly basis defending that championship and showing, hey, but I also think the fact that he hasn't main evented WrestleMania, in
years? Years? 29? Let's see, 30, 31, 29. Let's see, not 30, 31, 32, 33. No, and he wrestled in almost all of those. Yeah, so it's been since 29. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm sorry, but go ahead.
No. This is exactly what I wanted. I wanted to be able to, because I have these little bullet points and I want to just touch on them. But I'll back my point with, so you say, the shovel thing and Rusev and Bray Wyatt, but what happened in May of 2015 right after that? Kevin Owens beat Cena clean on pay-per-view. from NXT. So it was like, wow, Cena's really like, as if his ego was really what was driving it. Of course, it was the company being like, you're going to win, and we're going to keep pushing you. But Cena, like, all right, he really did put over Kevin Owens there. And Kevin Owens, we say this about like whoever beat the streak had to be someone worth it, and it was Brock. So it ended up being worth it. He kept destroying people, and it was like whatever. And whoever beats Gunther and all these types of things. Kevin Owens has been around now since that moment, beating John Cena. He's had such a, we've talked about it on this very show about how impressive his WrestleMania resume is, and I'm not sure if any of that really starts or has any opportunity to start if he doesn't have that clean victory over John Cena in 2015. So
yeah,
that was where I had a little bit of a disconnect of like, not sure if where he was coming from in the promo, where he said split reaction. See, to me, I think he would have, I don't know. I hate fantasy booking promos, but it's just like, I know what is also all on the table that he could have referenced. And unless he references it later, it seemed like a missed opportunity to not just reference it now.
Like what else? What else do you mean by that?
Well, like, so it didn't matter to me that as much that he didn't acknowledge The Rock. He's got plenty of time to do it, or why he necessarily sold his soul. But like, I think he could have played up, why didn't you fans? He could have kept going at the fans, but why did you guys not treat me like Hogan or treat me like you do Cody? Why do you, or why was I different? Why did I not get the same respect that I presented to everybody? Hustle, loyalty, and respect, but you guys gave me none of that. And I was doing everything right. I kept winning for you, and you couldn't. The guys before me and after me all were revered. Like, but then he could have launched into Hogan had to turn, and Cody's his new shiny toy, and now I don't like that. Like, I just think there are ways he could have acknowledged that. But again, with weeks left, I just hope he's on next week for sure. But I hope he's on more than just 1 or 2 more weeks, because you got to build this. You can't turn John Cena heel after 20 years and have him go for the record-breaking world title reign and him not really be intricately involved in most of the weeks leading up to Mania. Go ahead.
Yeah, honestly, that's one of probably the best points you've ever made is like, why cheer Hogan for years? That's real, and Cody obviously. Yeah, that's a really good point. I never even thought of that, Juice, to be honest with you. Like, that is a really good way of him acknowledging people before him and people after him that they were universally cheered and loved. Yeah, when you said that, I like legit sat here and thought, damn, like Juice has a couple brain cells that I don't, I feel. So, no, I have no rebuttal to that, but that's a really good thing that I – maybe not right now talking about Hogan, but like I know what you
right,
mean,
of course.
Like, yeah, but I know what you mean. Like just bring that up. But again, we have I think 3 or 4 more Cena appearances until WrestleMania.
Hopefully, yeah.
Yeah, and I think with him appearing, and let me ask you this question:
yeah,
do we see him and The Rock in the ring together before WrestleMania?
That's the thing. I think one of these. I think it's a really wasted opportunity if you're going to have – because Cena didn't just turn heel. He made it known that he was joining The Rock for this moment. Like, and to a lesser extent, Travis Scott, but he'll be at Mania. Like, he doesn't have to be on the road. But Rock, if you're going to announce John Cena for one of these future appearances, it doesn't have to be next week necessarily, but one of these upcoming shows, if you say Cena's going to do a promo or whatever, one of them – you should have The Rock make that surprise appearance, make him known, and that's where, maybe Cody can have a plea, or like maybe that's where you get the Rock beat up Cody in the rain last year moment.
Yeah.
But with Cena and The Rock maybe, and that leaves the door open to, damn, Cody really needs someone to help him. And, it was announced that WWE World is going to have one Stone Cold Steve Austin at that venue, so it's not just a 400-mile drive for him. He's gonna be in the town, so you got to leave some room open there, because when we see physicality, it's gonna happen one way or the other. Like, you can only have these promos so long before something has to give, considering what they did to him at Chamber, you know?
Yeah, and I think a lot of people talk about they shouldn't touch each other until WrestleMania. I'm not in the boat of that. I think that there needs to be at least one John Cena beating the crap out of Cody Rhodes, or him and The Rock beating up Cody, because I think for me the most memorable thing of the road to WrestleMania last year for Cody, and again it was Cody and Roman. It wasn't Cody and Rock, right? Was Rock beating the crap out of Cody Rhodes. Like that, it was raining, he was bleeding, his bust was there. Like
that is crazy to think in hindsight. Of course they had a tag match, but Rock beat Cody down, and yet they didn't have a one-on. Like the match wasn't those two.
I know.
You know?
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy? So maybe Rock does it again, and it's still Cena and Cody. Like
maybe
Rock
we get 42 or SummerSlam, or there has to be that match. I'm just not sure when.
Rock Cody and Rock Roman are personally, I would also throw Rock Cena 3 in there, but the first two, Cody and Rock and Roman and Rock, are to me the last two matches Rock ever needs to have before it closes it out, so he can fully tie all these loose ends together. But
yeah,
I don't know. Time's running out as long as his film career keeps going. So
yeah, and also considering if anybody ever thinks about if WWE, and I don't think people talk about this, but they might years down the road, if they talk about these people that come back to WWE, how did WWE treat them? Cody has been treated like gold. I think of it like this: Cody comes back, Seth, Roman, Rock Roman, John Cena, and then
John Cena,
maybe The Rock again.
A part of John Cena's heel turn, not even just a match with Cena.
Oh,
Cena 17. John Cena turned heel to have a match with Cody Rhodes.
Yeah, unbelievable. It's so hard to So for me, Cody has done everything he needed to be and needed to do to be this guy, to be the face. But they have set him up for success from day one he came back, right? He had the pec injury and he rehabbed, came back. Roman, in retrospect at 39, losing was actually the best thing for Cody. And then 40 is obviously all Cody, even though he took the pin at WrestleMania Saturday in the tag team main event match.
But that's what set up the potential future match. It left that door open. So that's why we want to see that pay off.
Yeah, but I think overall, as I know we're getting a little long-winded here, but when you see how John Cena is able to turn heel and has people buying into him after one promo, and knowing that 2 or 3 more promos are coming, which I think 2 or 3 more promos are going to get more personal. I
would hope that was what I was going to say is I'm giving this time, but the first impressions do matter in a program like this. But to me, Cena came off that whatever he said and how he said it, he kept coming off like he kept saying the same thing. He kept repeating almost. And the first part of that was perfect. Yet I also think it would have been perfect had he done it 15 years ago, because that was where those chants were man, Cena's doing everything right. Why are people hating on him?
But also when he was repeating himself, whenever I heard him repeating himself, it was him kind of crapping down the fans because they hated the same repetition that John Cena had for years, the 5 moves of doom. So whenever he said, what do I get? What do I get? Those things, at first I thought, why is he saying this so many times? But then I got it because it's he's saying the things that he is feeling and people booed him for so many years because they thought that he was only this 5-trick pony.
He was referencing his, in, I guess, kayfabe character through the years. This is what I've always been. Why have you guys not liked it? Because he's delusional now because he sold his soul. But the other part, again, man, what was it, 2-3 weeks of this where The Rock admits, man, I really like playing this final boss character. Then at Revolution, you get an actress from the Queen of the Ring movie saying, man, the biggest thing that I've learned from pro wrestlers is that they know who's going to win before anybody else does. And now Cena, cutting his first promo as a heel, says, I'm not a baby face. I'm not a heel. I'm a human being. So the wall is
a human being, by the way. You get booed by being a human being.
Exactly right. I don't know. I don't know where to stand on it anymore because kayfabe's dead, or it's just the wall's been broken down, and who cares anymore? Everything's a work. Everything's a work is crumbling because everything is just whatever everybody wants it to be. It's like a wild, wild west of kayfabe, which, if anything, it's almost as if it's turning back into true kayfabe. Not in the sense of we're trying to keep this secret, but it's we never know what is real because they're just saying everything.
Yeah.
Like there's not any hiding. He literally said, I'm not a babyface, I'm not a heel in the center of the ring on TV.
But that's the best part, though, because as soon as he said those two things, he's like, I'm a human, and people hated that.
People didn't hate me as a character. They hated me.
They hated me as a human being. Yep.
Because all I'm being is me. I'm being John Cena, the human being. That's my voice on the song. Because that's where the disconnect of people being like, well, he didn't have new music or new gear. One, okay, this is the first week. It absolutely could happen. But even if it doesn't, it plays just as well because, like I said earlier, he's delusional. He's still just John Cena. He felt in his character, I need to not be whatever I've been because it hasn't gotten me anywhere since, 2018, since his last one-on-one match. Like, I had to sell my soul. I had to find a way to the chamber. I had to kick the golden goose in the nuts to get this title. Like, whatever it takes to get number 17, because at that presser at Rumble, he said, winning number 17 is what's best for business. So he thinks that's the bottom line, and maybe he won't be writing that bottom line at WrestleMania if you catch my drift.
I think I might catch your drift because Juice said so.
But, man, again, we talk about this all the time, especially you and me. We bring it up all the time of, like, wrestling is at its best when it's unpredictable. And in the thick of WrestleMania season, on the road to WrestleMania, where it should be, I agree. Going forward, the last two shows I think are Minnesota and Sacramento before Vegas. But having these seeds planted, if you get 2 to 3 weeks every time from the road to WrestleMania, going to Europe or just going somewhere outside of the United States, even if it's Canada or even like Mexico where they've had some shows in Puerto Rico even. Yeah. If you do that, I think you're going to hit a home run every time because the crowds are unhinged. They are just dying to have important wrestling that's not just a house show here or whatever, and they appreciate it. You've seen the response for the PLEs. This was just a Monday Night Raw, but it's, the height.
It felt more important. Yeah.
Everything is so important right now. And they feel, wow, you are giving that to us. We are getting the road to WrestleMania, so we're going to show you that appreciation. So any other final words on Cena's promo or, Nails and Moxley's back, anything before we head on out here on this random you and me episode of the Juice Box this week? Little J&J action.
A little J&J action. No more, man. I'm excited for the road to WrestleMania. Just because a month ago people were like, there's nothing happening. March 1st happens, and it's hotter than ever. So no more words from me. I'm excited for the continuation of March Madness. I'm excited to be, fun fact, at WrestleMania.
Whoa!
Just Saturday, so I'll be back taking a red eye back Saturday to Sunday morning, which you're going to be at my house Sunday night, just an FYI. So
that's news to me. Breaking news.
I just put it together within the past 48 hours, my friend. So I'll send you the flyer that I made, and I'm excited for it. But no, always appreciate the time, Juice. A long one, but I think we covered so much, and this is probably one of my favorite Juice boxes without prediction. So, yeah, it's great.
Hell yeah, man. And anytime you are welcome in. man, the umbrella grows and produces anything and throws out anything at any time. So anybody that's willing to come in and chat pro wrestling with your boy, I really appreciate it. As we this past week, we uploaded the audio, of course, from Drew and Juice. We put up the Main Event Maniacs with Brian and Jay covering Jeff Jarrett versus Raven from the 43rd NWA TNA pay-per-view. We've got Josh coming in for this episode, a weekly episode of the Juice Box, which is really cool. So, anything can happen on the Juice Box as it does in the World Wrestling Federation. Yeah. So, yeah. So, for Josh Isenberg, at Josh Isenberg 4 on Twitter, I am Juice Springsteen, at Juicy Steen. Hope you guys enjoy your weekend, March Madness, pro wrestling as a whole, and we'll see you guys next week for at least one new episode, if not many more, of The Juice Box. That was The Juice Box with Juice Springsteen. Make sure to subscribe to The Juice Box wherever you listen to podcasts.